Good morning and welcome to another Evolve to Win Facebook Live with Heather and Paul.
Happy Monday and happy day after Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, and congratulations to all you Eagles fans out there. You've waited a long, long time. I remember in 1980 when the Eagles played the Raiders and they lost. I was a big Eagles fan back then when I was a kid because there's nothing to cheer about being a Chicago Bears fan. So, I'm glad that they won, and I know that people are upset that are Belichick and Brady and Patriots fans. But you know what? They've been to 9 Super Bowls. Come on, give me a break.
I can't feel that bad for you. We are sort of New England fans as well. We've got family out that way. Yeah. But it's just great to see an underdog win, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were originally going to do this Facebook Live on leadership lessons from football, which
and we're still going to do it.
I think is really still going to be a great one.
Yeah.
But we've shifted gears this morning, and we want to have a conversation with you about managing stress. And really, it starts off with assessing your stress, because we find in our research, in the data that we have from our clients, from assessments that we do, that about 8 out of 10 of our clients are in the red zone when it comes to internal tension or stress. So what happens is, if you're in denial about your stress level, that really can be a killer. It can be a killer of your career. It can be a killer of your relationships. Totally. It could take you down physically. I mean, really and literally, it can take you down physically too. So I think, having this conversation about stress isn't starting off with, okay, how do you manage it? It really is starting off with, how do you assess it? Do you even really have a feel for how stressed you are? So I mentioned to you that we do this assessment with our clients, and that about 8 out of 10 of our clients are showing up in the red zone, meaning they have high internal tension, high stress levels. And I can tell you, when I do these debriefs, that many of our clients are unaware of the fact that they would have scored in the red zone, and they're not exactly sure why that's happening. So I think just, you were talking, Paul, when we were discussing this topic, that you feel that there's a certain level of stress that we get used to. So share your thoughts about that.
So what I believe is that we are all under stress no matter what. We all have things going on because we have, physical stress, we have the financial stress, we have family stress, we have work stress, we have some level of stress. But what happens is that we become accustomed to the amount of stress that we're under. And it becomes a baseline for us. So we are there, and we're like, well, this is kind of how I feel all the time. And you don't recognize that you're under stress. And so it becomes so natural for us to be in a state of stress that unless you are aware of it, you really can't go after what's causing it. And I think there's so many different dynamics to what causes stress. Some of the things that we listed, and are talking about, is that we kind of go into denial because it's just the way it is.
Like, we learn to live with it, right? We tolerate whatever it is that's causing the stress, to a point where if you tolerate something for long enough, it becomes your new norm, right? And that's just what's so for you. So we sort of, okay, let me talk about denial for a minute, okay? You'll notice in the title of our show here, we have denial in all caps, and we did that for a reason, because the single best definition I've ever heard of denial goes like this. Denial stands for, don't even notice I am lying. And I absolutely love that as a definition, because I think what happens is we create our worlds in such a way that stress is present. Look, stress is present for us anytime we're changing. And the one thing that we know that's constant in our world is that change is happening. So we will, just by virtue of going through so much change, we're going to be encountering stress. Now, if you are working right now, you're in a leadership position, we know that there are additional stresses that you're feeling. There's so much that's changing in our business environment, and it's changing so quickly that it's very, very difficult to stay ahead of that change. So you've got to be constantly proactively looking, and all of that can cause a lot of stress as well. Now, not to mention everything else that goes on in our personal worlds. We all have a story. There are, I know that many of you are going through so many different things personally that are really adding to that level of stress. Or possibly the stress that you're experiencing at work is creating some physical, personal relationship stress outside of work. So it can become cyclical. And I think, really recognizing where you're in denial, where is that stress really, really happening for you? Because until you assess it, until you truly become aware of it, you will not do anything about it.
Well, and as we were talking about this topic this morning, we were kind of going back and reflecting on, when Heather and I first met, and we were both in some financial stress for sure.
Yeah. I had law school loans that were absolutely crushing me.
Yeah.
And more bills than income. I had made plenty of income, but I still worked myself a way to have more bills than income, or more expenses, I guess I should say, than income.
Yeah, and I was in the same situation. I had tons of debt. I had credit card bills. and I was not managing it, and I remembered the amount of stress that I was under. But it was because I was, and I think this was the same for you as well. When you're in that stressful situation, it just becomes the norm, right? So you're used to it. The bills aren't going away unless you're getting proactive on it. And so it kind of turns into a denial moment where, for me, I just sat with that. And it became the baseline of how I felt all the time. I got used to being stressed about finances all the time. And so I coped with that by maybe drinking too much. I wasn't getting enough sleep. So all of these different things contribute to just that one particular stress area. Mm-hmm. And, and I was totally in denial around it because I had no idea how to get out.
I was too. And I remember this is how I used to deal with my stress. So my issue was a lack of financial management, right? Mm-hmm. I really had no reason to have the financial stress that I did. I mean, of course, I was an idiot by taking out way too many student loans, way more. I took out the max because I'm like, why wouldn't they? They give me all this money and low interest. Free money, which is so not free. And those of you who can relate to this.
And that's back when college was at least reasonable, right? I mean, it was expensive, but it's not like it is now.
Wow. It's definitely a lot more expensive now, but it's all relative. It was crushing at the time. And I remember I literally used to get so physically ill thinking about all the different loan payments. And I had all these different places that I had to pay. And so I'm writing all these different checks every single month. And I had more that was going out than even my mortgage, in student loan payments. Yeah. So the way that I used to deal with it is that I didn't deal with it at all. I didn't call and ask somebody to try to help me figure it out. I didn't know how to manage it. So what I finally did was I swept it under the rug by making the poorest decision financially up until that point in time in my life. I've made many worse since then. But the worst decision I made is I got so stressed out, I decided to consolidate them all at 8%. It was crazy. It was the worst time I could have possibly consolidated. But in my mind, I was doing such a great thing because that would only be one loan payment and the payment itself would be lower. Yeah. But I mean, it was such a poor financial decision.
Okay,
and the thing
is, back then.
I had access to some really, really smart financial minds, but I was so in denial. I was lying to myself that I could manage the situation when I couldn't because I wasn't savvy enough to manage it. So I just made bad mistake after bad mistake and kind of swept it aside. And it was really, really stressful at the time.
And so I want you, who's listening to this, watching this, is really step back and take a look at your life. It's Monday.
It's Monday.
You may be stressed right now because it's Monday, but think about and take a look at, from a different perspective, of what stresses you out. Is this just normal for you? Are you stressed, but you think that this is just the way it is, and I mean, people with kids and families and with work and with financials and everything else that goes in it, all of that compounds. And then if we're coping with it through whether it's alcohol or or insomnia, where I know a lot of people that aren't getting enough sleep, I think one of the biggest contributors to most of the physical issues that we have in society is that we don't get enough sleep. I think people underestimate how much they need to sleep, especially as you get older, you need more sleep. And
some people are saying, okay, that's great, but I go to bed and I can't sleep.
Right.
So then you really start to look at, okay, well, what are you doing to manage the stress? Because clearly if you're not sleeping, that's probably a good indicator. It's at least one of the indicators that we've read about that you're stressed out. So what are you doing to manage the stress proactively? What are the really good strategies that you're using to manage the stress? And I got to tell you, this episode is not about managing the stress as much as it is about just having the awareness and really making a decision to handle it, to just take charge of whatever area is stressing you out, make a change, right? Change what you can change. Of course, there are some things we have to deal with, we can't, but there are some things you can change. My single best advice that I ever got from someone was to start meditating. And that was back in 2008. And I'm telling you that as out there as that may seem, it's made a massive, massive difference in my ability to cope and manage my own internal stress. So whatever it is for you, whether it's exercise, whether it's getting enough sleep, but there are really good ways of managing it. But part of that is like not just accepting your stress as this is how it needs to be, right? So we're getting more like wanting you to get more familiar with and assess your stress, because there's one thing about managing the symptoms, and then there's another thing about doing something about it too.
Well, and everybody thinks that they're strong and that they, we can just plow through this. And then once you get through the stressful, see, the thing is, and this is the whole point of this Facebook Live and this topic, is that you could be living under a stress right now that's incredibly, causing a lot of issues which you don't even know. That's kind of the underlying, because it's so stressful, but it's become such a norm for you that you just don't even recognize that it's doing any harm. So I really want, and again, it's always it's assessing, it's taking a look at what are the things that are causing stress in your life. We're really taking a step back and saying, do I have financial challenges right now that I need to clean up, that I really need to focus on? Are there physical things with you that, not going out, going for that walk, not going and just getting the stress level down physically? Are you not eating properly? Are you not drinking? Are you drinking too much? Or not drinking enough water or whatever? But there's so many little things that can contribute to it. Are you not getting enough sleep? Are there in family? Is there something that needs to be resolved there? All of this is compounding again onto how people are feeling. And I think it's, and again, this is about leadership and about how you lead people. If you're a leader and you're stressed and you're in denial about your stress and you have a lot of things going on that are contributing to that, how could you possibly lead somebody else? I mean, it is integrity, right?
I always ask the question, what percentage of leaders lead by example? Which of course is a trick question, because the answer is 100%. We all lead by example. So if you're in a leadership position and you're facing tremendous stress that you're not addressing, trust me, they know it. They know it.
Well, and this is how I know how much stress I'm under. And it used to be very easy, but now it's changed a little bit. But when we would go on a cruise, we'd get our stuff on the cruise, we'd unpack, and that first day we would just sit down, outside on deck, and your cell phones didn't work. Now I think you can get them where they get. You can get everything works on it. But back 5, 6, 7 years ago, you could go on cruises and you really couldn't get anything. I mean, there was Wi-Fi, but we'd get on that cruise and we'd sit down, and it was like we were totally unplugged from the world. And you could feel really physically. Yeah, I mean, but the point is that I personally could feel the difference between what it felt like to be stress-free and what my life currently was at, and the amount of stress that I was living in. Mm-hmm. And that was the only way that I could distinguish the two. And it's hard to do that when you're in, the fishbowl of being stressed in your real life. We can't all live on cruises, right?
Right. Too bad about that. But you're right. I mean, that is a great way to assess is, have you ever been able to get away, unplug, and feel that relief? Now, I know that many people who go on vacation now are actually more stressed about going on vacation than taking the vacation, than not taking it, because there's so much work to be done. They're stressed out about how many emails are going to be piling up, and I probably need to check my phone. I mean, I know so many executives, managers who just can't even be on vacation anymore. So that may or may not be a great a great indicator anymore is to like, do you have that release?
Yeah, but
because I know some people just don't even get that release anymore. So, you know, I want to mention one more idea about assessing stress that might be helpful for you guys. When I'm working with leaders and we're doing this assessment, right, and they see that they're in the red zone in internal tension, they're saying, you know what, I don't know why that's up in the red zone. I don't feel that stressed. And I'll start to ask them some questions, and they all of a sudden will say, oh yeah, I nailed it. Like, I guess I am totally stressed. One of the big causes is when you have an issue with someone or something that you don't address and you just hold it inside. That creates a lot of internal tension. So whether that's a relationship at work, maybe it's even a relationship at home, but you have an issue, there's something that's not working, but you don't address it directly. Instead, you just hold it in, or maybe you address it with someone other than the person who you take issue with. Both of those can cause a whole lot of stress because you're not actually dealing with the issue itself. And I find that again and again, where there are just certain relationships, certain people that, you know, someone's challenged by, and they won't actually confront a situation directly. Now, this is true for a huge percentage of the population because most behavioral styles do not actually like conflict. So I want you to ask yourself that very question right now. Are you one of those people who would like to avoid conflict rather than address it directly? And if the answer is yes, I really want you to look for how much internal stress that may be causing you, because chances are really good that you then just tolerate whatever's happening in a situation rather than address it directly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big cause, I think, of stress that I see.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we're gonna when you get that double side together, you know, we're ready to wrap this up and take it home. So, you know, this is actually a very, very serious topic, and we know that it can create physical symptoms. It can actually take you down, take you out altogether. So the more stress you're encountering, the more danger you put yourself in. And so it's really not to be taken lightly. Whatever it is going on in your world, if you don't have a way to manage it yourself and you haven't been able to figure out how to work with friends and family to do that, reach out to someone and ask for help. And look, you know, I've had people say to me before, you know, Heather, I was thinking about calling you because I was, you know, having these challenges in my business. And I hear that again and again, but I know you're so busy. You know what? We are never too busy. And there's that, you know, that makes me feel terrible when I hear somebody wanted to reach out because they needed some help and they didn't. And you never, ever have to worry about the cost of picking up that phone because there isn't one. We will help you as a resource find what you need to find. And if it's not a good fit for us, we will absolutely get you with somebody who can help you. And that ranges anywhere from completely free, by the way. There's so many services out there that we can direct you to. Many people we've sent to different people who have made a tremendous impact in their lives. And sometimes it's not even business related, but we've got an incredible network. We have so many professionals that can help on so many levels. Reach out and pick up the phone, and don't try to do this on your own. If you're stressed out, ask someone for help.
Yeah. And again, it's, you know, we're not telling you what to do or how to cope or however it is. It's about just assessing. It's understanding that we all live in a level of stress, and it's just identifying what level is it, right? Mm-hmm. And so just step back, take a look, see how you feel about it, take a breather, and recognize that if you have a ton going on and you are either talk to somebody or, you know, just figure out make a checklist of them and start checking them off and starting to straighten them out. A lot of it is, you know, getting organized, you know, just getting your life organized in some cases to help you get unstressed. So,
well, I want to thank you guys for tuning in today.
I'm feeling less stressed talking about stress.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It feels kind of good. It feels kind of good to get that off your chest. Thanks for tuning in today. It was great to have you here with us. And if you liked this episode, please share it, especially if you know someone out there who is going through a lot in their personal or professional life and they're feeling stressed out. Sometimes it's just about recognizing that we all go through it. Everybody is going through it at some level. But just get in touch with it so that you can then come up with some strategies for how to deal with it. You can always connect with us on social media. You can visit us at heatherchristie.com. And don't forget that we just this year in 2018 launched our joint podcast, Evolve to Win. And you can find that on iTunes or Spreaker or Google Play. Wooditch Network is the actual video version. So we've got a video version of that podcast as well at Wooditch. Is it Wooditch?
Yeah, and if you like this, or you know somebody that is under a tremendous amount of stress and needs to hear this message, please share it with them. And you have yourself a fantastic day and a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Monday.
Have a great week.
Bye now.